Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to transform relationships to love and life, answering all of our questions and our quandaries about what's happening on planet Earth, and more importantly, how we're feeling about it and what's still up for development and what's still up for healing, I guess we'd say, right? What are we here to create? What are we here to learn? So today I've got a ton of questions. I'm super excited about it. I hope I can get through them all. If I don't, of course, as always, I'll finish them next week. And if you're watching this on replay, please put your questions in the chat, and I will be sure to answer them next week. So I'm going to jump right in because we've got so many here. Super excited to go through this list. Question number 1. Any thoughts on how to deal with worst case scenarios that don't happen, like near misses? Well, first of all, I have 2 words. Stop it. Stop focusing on things that could happen that aren't going to happen. Otherwise, you know how this works. It's the law of attraction, right? So if you're worrying about all these things, then you're going to attract them to you. You're going to attract that vibration. Maybe not that exact scenario, but you don't want that vibration out there. So just stop it. There's this really great Bob Newhart video on YouTube it's at Google Bob Newhart Mad TV Stop It. And it's just such a brilliant way of taking this to such simplicity. And it's just stopping our minds from creating all of these ideas that don't need to happen. So when you hear yourself start thinking, oh, geez, this could happen. What do I do about that? Stop yourself and think, what's the outcome I want to envision? Go right to seeing everything working smoothly. Now, if you want to take it to, let's say, a business setting or something where you have to scenario plan, that's fine. You can still scenario plan, but keep in mind the energy that you put towards the outcome you actually want is where it's super, super important. So if you have to do the due diligence to write this down in a work situation, write it down, but then be sure that you're transforming your energy into seeing the highest possible solution, which may not even be something that you can think of yourself, right? So be open to new possibilities. We don't know. It might not blossom. It usually doesn't blossom in the way that we think. I mean, come on, how many plans have we put in place in our life and our work and our relationships? And, the best laid plans are there to be blown up and for a totally different plan to happen that oftentimes is for our highest good. And sometimes we bring in that lower vibration. So just knock it off. Don't do it. Don't go to that place where you're really going to deep dive into the negative possibilities that could be happening. So just stay out of it. Just stop it. All right. Question number 2. Any tips, ideas on transitioning seasons, summer to fall, routines, schedules? Actually, this one, what comes to mind is number 1, clean house, right? I'll always clean house, whether it's the dust on the blinds or it's something under a nook and cranny that you just want to clean out. So do that spring cleaning, that fall cleaning. But I think in addition to that, bring in energy into your home through, could be a plant, could be crystals, could be lots of different things that hold energy. So I don't mean like go down to the store and just buy something to buy something. I mean, find something that holds an energetic charge, something that will bring good energy into your home, will help move energy in your home. Maybe it's, as simple as moving a chair to a different place. I know sometimes if you watch my videos long enough, you'll see that my rocking chair here in the back sometimes is there, and sometimes it's my other mauve velvety chair. And it's simply because I move my chairs around in my living room because I kind of have a routine in the morning where I rock in my chair and I read a book to get myself into a high vibrational space and just to open my mind to new concepts. And so oftentimes I'll just move chairs around, and then I have a different perspective from my own living room. I have a different way that I'm interacting with my environment. So maybe it is to buy a new lamp, but I don't think you got to buy anything new necessarily. I think you just got to move a few things around. And then sometimes I find that I have to move it back because because it didn't help the energy. But there's always little things you can do, stuff you can pick up, right? Things that we can clean up and realize that, oh, wow, I don't really need that piece right there, along with the three other pieces that are sitting there. And so clean it up. Ask it when you're moving these pieces, is this the right spot? And just, be really quiet with yourself and listen. I know that to some may sound a little bit funny, but the objects will give you a feeling like, yeah, this is the right space, or no, it's not. So I would bring in some crystals, bring in some plants, bring in some flowers. Maybe you do a new routine where you're bringing in flowers, especially as we move into fall and the winter months. If you live somewhere where it's cold, sometimes those flowers just bring back spring every day. So that could be a really good way to do it. And who knows, it could also be as easy as changing out a light bulb. Maybe there's a light that you want to have be bright and glowy as opposed to the more warm and orange. And that can change energy in the room. There's one other thing. This is not really a plug. It's just something I have in my own home, but I think it would be really fun. And I can find a link and put it in here, but there's something called bliss lights. And they're really fun projector. It puts onto the ceiling the like a space, outer space, and that just, it can expand the living room. It works mostly, at night, but you can use it at any point in time, and that might be a really fun thing. So let me see if I can find a link to put it in here, and that might just bring some new energy into your home as well. So hopefully that helps. And also, I think, your workout routine, that's also something to really think about. If there's something you want to add in, something that feels, vibrationally aligned. Because I know for me, in the winter, in summer, I run on the beach, and that really takes up my routine up a notch, because I'm always in my spin class, and so the beach really helps me be outside. So as you move into the fall, maybe you're not running on the beach, but you're finding some other activity that gets you into a different energetic space. So only you know what's right for you. Maybe it's a park that's near you, and you just start walking in the park even when it's cold, and maybe you take shoes off. So that's also, I think, a fun way to experience nature, and watching the leaves fall and turn color, and just being observational about how Mother Nature is actually transforming and transitioning through the seasons, brings just that connection to source as well. So those are a bunch of different tips that I would say as you transition into different seasons and into the holidays. All right, question number 3. How do I feel more connected to self and community? I think those are two probably really different things. Connecting to self is always going to be more, inner reflective, and meditation, yoga, journaling, reading, and those times where we're not following our minds down a rabbit hole, but we're just observing, and we're transitioning and transforming the ideas that are coming to us. I would say that that's how you get more connected to your higher self, right? If you want to just stay connected to that wild and crazy mind that's going to run you around, that's why they call it the monkey mind. That is not going to get you closer to your higher self. So let's be really clear that the intention is I want to connect to my higher self, not the identity of all of the mental thought constructs that I have as to how I see myself in my current environment. So I would say that for connecting to self. But when it comes to connecting to community, I think the more you can just use your discernment about where am I vibrationally and who matches up with that it's not about just having a social calendar. It's not about just, being able to say, oh, I've got all these things going on. It's thinking about, what are the types of people that I want to be doing activities with, and then going and finding where those people may be. And it might be the people that are, in the spiritual classes that you're already going to, the singing bowls, the yogas, the kirtans. And if you're not going to them, then maybe you should start going to them, and you'll find some like-minded people who are not looking for just social events, but looking to be in community in a somewhat social way. So hopefully that's helpful. I know sometimes that can be a challenge for all of us, depending upon where we live and and whether or not we have a lot of people that have similar interests to us. But it's also something you can do with an online community, right? So we can be in connection as we are on the show, and find people that we feel like we really, really resonate with. So have discernment around your time, where you're spending it and who you're spending it with. And then I think you're going to find that community aspect, really locks in for you with people that you want to spend time with. All right, let's go to the next question. How do you empathize with others while protecting your own energy field and create boundaries? Admittedly, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by how do you empathize with others. I think maybe that's about, how do I stay really clear with others while protecting my own energy field and creating boundaries. I think it's really being clear on what it is that you feel first. Sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds when we're in an interaction, right? And like it's going down and you're like, wait, how do I feel about this? And I would just say that it's so appropriate to just say, I just need a minute to feel into that, or give me a minute. I just want to think about that. I want to just see how I really feel about that. If you really are clear, state the truth. I think it's so interesting how, especially when we're younger, but as we get older, we start to realize, like, just speak my truth. Just say what I'm feeling. Just say what I'm thinking. Just be me. If it might change tomorrow how I'm feeling, but how am I feeling today? And sharing that with someone else, being really upfront, be a truth teller. That's where I think we're really headed right now, is be a truth teller of what's my truth right now, today, in this moment, and giving ourselves the liberty to change that if in fact we feel that something has changed for us. But we do our best to feel into how we feel about it. And that means really going into the body, not, just the mind, not just like, oh, let me think about it. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. It's like, well, no, how do I feel about it? And sometimes what I do is if I'm like really conflicted and I can't quite get that clarity, I will put out there in my mind, like, well, what if this happened? How would I feel about that? Like if I went on this day trip with this person, how would I feel? And then I go, okay, well, if I didn't and I stayed home, how would I feel? It helps me just get into like the feeling of, am I excited? Or do I feel like I'm going just because I don't want to disappoint that person, or I feel guilty, or, it's like, it helps you get into the feeling of what you really want. And so I think that's what helps you have clear boundaries, is when you really know what you want. And to know what you really want sometimes takes a little bit of a pause and a stopping of sometimes the chaos that's around you. And sometimes the social pressure of, well, are you going? Are you going? And just saying, you know what? I just need a minute. Just give me a minute. And give me tomorrow, whatever the time frame is, and asking for that. And if the other person or situation doesn't want to allow you that time, then maybe you miss an opportunity, and maybe you don't. Maybe you just pass on it and it's just not a big deal. But don't then go back and reflect on, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's like, no, just keep moving forward with whatever your clarity was in that moment, and just trust that it's, really for your best interests. Okay, next question. How can I be more easy and flowing in my everyday decisions? Well, I think probably what I just said, which is trust, right? It's trust that you are in the flow. And when you don't feel like you're in the flow, it might be that time to pause. It might be that way of just taking a deep breath and really feeling into, why do I feel out of alignment? What I do oftentimes when I feel out of flow is I start journaling. And you can just literally write the question, I feel so out of flow. How can I get back into flow? And just see what comes from the pen, not from the mind, but from the pen. Just like, I always find that so fascinating. I love doing that. It gives me something that I go, wow, who wrote that later, oftentimes. I think it's also speaking to your guides. I've spoken on this before, that I think many of us talk about guardian angels, and we talk about, spirits and all these different things, but are we really having an active conversation with our guides and asking, hey, what is today all about for me, or show me, or guide me throughout the day? Oftentimes, I think, I know when I'm journaling, I have to stop myself when I say, how do I? It's like, no, show me. guide me. It's a different wording and a different language that helps you to not be doing this journey alone, right? Which is often a complaint that we all have, is that we just feel like, oh my goodness, like I just keep doing. And I feel like it's either, not enough, or it's not moving in the right direction. And it's like, no, just be guided, right? Just be in the guidance of your guides. And if you're not having that conversation, then you're not going to be in flow, right? Because you're not asking for flow. You're not putting that intention out there to really be in that spiritual guidance from your higher self and your angels, and whatever starseed guides you may have in your life as well. So yeah, get those guides in there and, start talking to them and get clear on what the mission is, and for every day, and, from moment to moment within the day. And when you feel off flow, just pause. All right. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, I'm always happy to hear in the chat, even if it's on replay. So let's go to the next question. My wife is going through menopause, and it's a nightmare for me. Emotional mood swings are worse than ever, and it's breaking us apart because I want to spend less time with her when she's like that. Any advice on how to handle her? Well, first of all, I commend you for asking the question, and I think that suggests that you are a very caring, loving man. I will also say that, just be a little careful with your wording. Any advice on how to handle her, because that kind of comes from a place of trying to be in control. We have to let each one of our brothers and sisters, lovers, relationship partners, do their own journey. But to get really specific, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving any prescribing guidance here, but go get your hormones checked. That would be first and foremost. I'm always amazed when people tell me that they're having lots of problems, but they haven't gone into their OBGYN and said, hey, I need a blood test to know where my hormone levels are. And there's been so much controversy over the years about hormones. Each person is different. So this is where the doctor comes in, not me and my advice, but I can say that there's lots of options. There's, I've had hormones that are made from yams, so they're very natural. There's other more pharmaceutical type hormones. And so you have to feel into what's right for you. And I also wouldn't be shying away from, because I think a lot of us know about estrogen and progestin when it comes to our menstrual cycle as women, but we don't often think about testosterone because it feels a little bit more masculine. And I will say that it doesn't have to do all the time with sex drive. Testosterone has to do with mood, so, and energy and metabolism, and it really can help elevate our hormonal balance as women. So do not shy away from testosterone. As far as I'm concerned, the libido aspect of it is on the lower end of the list. It's really for mental health, and in many ways specific to this question about, feeling that your wife has a lot of emotional mood swings. So I would definitely get into the doctor, get your hormones tested, and get on something that can help relieve some of the symptoms and just get you more balanced out. And, it's kind of that beautiful time in life where we're marinating as women into a whole new part of our life where, everything changes a little bit for us. Hopefully that helps. If not, again, put some notes in the chat and I'll be happy to add some more to this. All right, let's go to the next question. I feel I've gone through a significant awakening process. I feel like I get it, and yet I'm struggling with the 3D. What can I do to be happy being here? I think that this is a question that so many people are having. People who are waking up, people who are completely asleep and numb, don't have a clue, and they're not even asking. They're just sort of doing their deal every day. But for those of us who have been on deep dives in this whole spiritual awakening process, it is a difficult time because right now there's still a lot of thought constructs that are in place. So the matrix is still here. It's alive. It's well. It will be forevermore. But as we continue to work our way out of it, which is all about unraveling the mind, we're going to keep getting tugged back in. We're going to keep getting reflections from our external our external environment that kind of debunks some of like what we know spiritually. And so we have to continue to step through whatever idea it is that's coming to mind, because it's all the mind, as you know, because you're awake, you're aware. It's about embodiment, right? So intellectually, we can know a lot of spiritual concepts, but until we embody those concepts, it gets wonky in there. It gets, icky and sticky, because the ideas keep coming back around. The ideas about life and, like, why aren't I somewhere else? I think what comes to mind to share is that when we do wake up, we want to contribute. We want to do something bigger for humanity. And we get ideas and we get downloads and we get hits, and we have, I have so many things that have come to me over the years that I want to do and accomplish and contribute. And yet, it's about divine timing. And what we want to make sure we're not doing, and I'm guilty of this too, is not staying focused on the disparity between here and where we think we're supposed to be, where we think we're supposed to be contributing, the magnitude, the depth, the whatever your idea is and whatever you think you're here to do. You have to stay in the here and now, because that was part of the question. What can I do to be being happy here? And that is to be like so granular in this moment of now, right? Trusting that the divine is guiding you and that the timing is on, but mentally in our minds, not focusing on where we think we're supposed to be, not focusing on where we think we're supposed to go, not focusing on these ideas of how things are supposed to be grander or bigger or better or whatever, because they're perfect right now. And that's always going to be the lesson for all of us, is until we find perfection in this moment now, it's always going to feel like a struggle, because it's the mind projecting us somewhere else. It's the mind in disappointment. It's the mind telling us that we're supposed to be something else, when our only duty is, as my spiritual healer always says, and I talk about in Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, my book, is my spiritual healer always says, Axel, our only role is to be the happiest motherfuckers on earth. And so we have to come back to this moment to be that, and to let go of all of these ideas that we're supposed to be and do something else, something more. So I get it. We're all there. We all have those moments, and we dip into them sometimes deeper than other times. The other thing I would say is, when you're dipping into those moments, misery loves company. So don't go find someone that you're going to sit in that same, mess and that muck and that rabbit hole. Yes, there's something to be said for like releasing, but we've released enough of this. We've bitched enough about things that it's calling someone that can shine the light for us and say, okay, yes, walk me off this ledge, walk me off this train of thought, walk me off of this rabbit hole, and take me to a place that's a lot, higher vibration, right? Remind me, because that's what we're here to do. As awakening agents, we are here to help remind each other how to get out of the muck, and that we're not in the muck, right? It's like, it's actually acknowledging that we're not in the muck, that at every moment we can transform our energy to be in a different mental state. I get it. It's harder some days than others, because there's things that are reflecting to us. There's things that don't feel like they're lining up, but it goes back to trust that everything is lining up. Do something that shifts your state. Get out on the beach, run, take a walk, smell a flower, do something that shifts your state. When you find yourself getting into that bah humbug mode, do something else. Don't stay in it, and don't call someone who's going to further that storyline and tell you how terrible, their situation is, or how much they agree with you, right? Find somebody else that's going to just reflect a different reality to you. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's go on to the next question. My spiritual tools don't seem to work. Actually, I think this is a follow-up to the other question. My spiritual tools don't seem to work. I've done psychedelics and many other modalities. Any other suggestions? Well, I think psychedelics, as you've heard probably from listening to many of my shows, is that they are awakening agents. They're always going to show us the North Star, but they're not going to enlighten us. And so you're right. Going back to psychedelics over and over and over is not going to give you something more. It's just going to continue to remind you of what you already know. And that's their role as awakening agents. And it's their role to help bring forward some of the things from our subconscious mind to be able to clear out and to be able to shine our light brighter and to raise our vibration. So yeah, I think it's great that you're acknowledging that you don't need to do, well, I'm taking away that you don't need to do more psychedelics. You don't need to probably even be trying to use your old spiritual toolbox. I think it goes back to that trust and living life here. Sometimes we get so involved in our spiritual journey that we don't actually just enjoy the little things about what's happening right now, right? And so the little things like right now is that I have a really great cup of matcha tea, and it's warm, it's hot, and I can drink it and I can enjoy it. And so it's coming back to these really basic things that life offers us, right? As opposed to, well, I don't have this experience, because we know, it seems kind of odd to say, but we know that people who, have achieved this great deal of money, fame, fortune, they too struggle with the same things. So it's not about achieving something else or getting something else. And so right now I feel like in the matrix, on planet Earth, all of us awakening agents are being tested to the max, actually, with frustration and underutilization and why aren't I making a bigger difference, and all of these ideas that are still constructs of the mind. And they have a lot of legitimacy, because we all have some really incredible tools and skills and abilities to reflect the light within us, and we want to be utilized. So just know that we are being utilized. You're being utilized every day you walk down the street. You buy a coffee, you pass by someone and you smile, right? It's that moment of interaction. It's not just a transaction of a coffee. It's an acknowledgement that there's another human in front of you, and it's bringing your light that's deep within out and shining it for them to see, for them to feel, for them to experience. And it can be just a nanosecond, right? It doesn't have to be that you have a long conversation. It doesn't even mean that you have to give them a compliment. I mean, you can, and that's great, but it just means you just show up. You just show up in every day. And that's what we're being called to do right now as light workers, way showers, awakening agents, is show up and shine our light and show the way for others, because there's a lot of people who aren't at that place where you are, that don't have the spiritual toolbox that you have, that aren't as far along on the awakening journey. And not as a judgment, because who knows, could have a near-death experience tomorrow and their whole life could change. They could have, they could fall deeply in love and have a different vibrational essence about them that helps catapult them into something else. Lots of things can happen. All right, let's go on to the next question. Why is it that once we feel like we have learned a life lesson, that the universe throws us a curveball and makes us reevaluate one more time? I get it. It happens all the time, doesn't it? Because the universe is always going to test us on our level of embodiment. And it's always about how, I hesitate to say the word quickly, can we get ourselves to neutral state, right? So life is going to have highs and lows. There's going to be things that, oh my gosh, and oh, it's, our reaction to them, that we want to come back to that neutral state. We want to have the experience. We want to get excited. And we also want to feel the sadness of something that happens, because that's a human experience. But then we also want to come back to just like, okay, well, what's the neutral state of bliss, right? That blissfully neutral state where we don't have to be in the highs and the lows. And the one way to get out of it is to stop the mind from judging what's good or bad. I'm having an experience of sadness. I'm going to allow myself to cry. I'm going to allow myself to release. I'm having an experience of joy, and I'm just going to be joyful, and I'm just going to allow myself to experience that. But when we can come back to just like this, this juicy place of just this blissful neutrality, That's really the key. So if you're getting tested on something you feel like you already learned, it's an old lesson, it's just to say, hey, we're just checking in. Your guides are just checking in to see how quickly you can get back to neutral state, a blissfully neutral state. And it's fun, actually, when we start to realize that things aren't triggering us in the same way, like, oh, felt that trigger, but then we shift through it, right? And so that's the fun part. And spend the time focusing with yourself on how quickly you move back into neutral state, and reward yourself mentally in the mind for that, right? Instead, we often focus on why we can't shift and why we can't change something. No, go back. If you're in that really place, go back to a time where you're like, oh man, that happened. And yeah, I moved through it. I moved through it with ease and grace. And I experienced the feeling, I experienced the situation. And then, I just opened up, and I came back to this place of everything is perfect now, right? And remind yourself of the times that you do that, as opposed to remind yourself of, oh my God, I'm back in that place. Yeah, we got to just keep going forward and staying in that higher vibrational field, because that's the practice. And we're going to get tested all the time with old lessons until we really, really, really have embodied and or dismantled that idea about whatever the charge is, right? Whether it's I don't know, something with our child, or something with a parent, or something with a lover. Those things are going to continue to come until we're just really at an acceptance level of everything is perfect. All right, let's go to the next question. Why is it sometimes in life that our reaction doesn't match the problem? Why is a non-event so triggering? Well, actually, you know what? I feel like I just answered this in this last question. A reaction doesn't match the problem. Why is a non-event so triggering? And it's about getting back to that blissfully neutral state again, right? We want to make sure that we're able to just transition ourselves, transform our ideas about a situation, so that we can get our learnings from that and then move on. It's not until we get the learnings that we can actually move into a different way of thinking. So why is a non-event so triggering? I think sometimes our mind just needs to poke us. I think our emotions just need to poke us. I think sometimes we just need to release an emotion that we just didn't even know was there. And so when we say like a non-event, I think this person means it's something that they're like, why would I let something so trivial, impact me? Or why? Yeah. And that's just because you need to have that emotion. I last week I talked a lot about my time in Italy. And there were so many things I love about the Italians. And one of the things that comes relevant to say again today is when they have an emotion, you know it. They're like, I'm telling you how I feel about it. And they get hot, and and then it's like done. I'm not saying that everybody does it, in the most conscious way. I'm just saying that it's an observation that is beautiful when we can just have an emotion and just like speak our truth and like, this is how I feel, instead of what society often encourages us to do, which is just remain quiet, remain calm, and carry on, right? It's like, well, there's times when we just need to release it and then calm down. And then if in the interaction we've upset someone else, right, then we've triggered them, perhaps unnecessarily, just going back and saying, hey, I realize I got a little hot about that, or maybe I approached that in the wrong way. I really needed to release this. Please forgive me. Right. And having that open communication and having that ability to just neutralize, these highly charged situations that come up. All right. It looks like I might have, I'm looking at the comments here, and I have a comment that says, happiest MFs on earth. I look forward to wearing your baseball cap at the next conference with that on it. I love that. Yeah, well, my mother doesn't like that I use those words, so I use them sparingly, and I always give the credit back to Axel, my spiritual healer, because he's the one that says it so eloquently and so unexpectedly to use those words, but it's so true. All right, the next question: how do I know if I'm being love bombed, and is that always bad? Actually, I kind of love this question. because I love love, and I love when you meet someone and you just like feel that connection and you're like, oh my gosh, there's something about this person, and you feel like you've known them before, and it's just like, like, I love that. That's so fun because it raises your vibration, and then like everything feels possible, right? And you know the phrase, love is blind. And there's a word, limerence, and that's sort of that infatuation stage. I love that because that person that you attracted clearly has a lesson for you. It doesn't mean you're going to be happily ever after, because that's just an idea. But it means that the universe has put you together with this person and given you this energetic connection, this chemistry to them that can really help blossom something within you that you didn't even know you needed to work on, right? So we get these people in our life. Now, love bombing is a little bit different in the sense that then sometimes people take that limerence and they are a little bit addicted to the energy of that, the idea that love is outside of them. And then they start, giving things and showing up in ways that makes you feel like, that seems like a little much, right? So if you're feeling, that's a little much, it probably is. Do we have to make judgments about it being good or bad? I don't think so. I actually don't think that we need to judge love bombing. I think we just need to understand that when it's happening, that we don't get so caught up in this idea about love outside of ourselves from someone else, because it can feel really nice to be recognized and acknowledged and seen, right? I mean, that's what relationships do for us, is it helps us feel seen, and it can be just that beautiful interaction with another person, even as a friend. It doesn't have to be romantic potential. So I would say that as best you can, enjoy it, but also you can set your boundaries. Like, hey, I love that you sent me 10 dozen roses. It was a bit much, right? Like, I don't need to see your love in that way. I want to see your love in our interactions, in our discussions, in our words, and acknowledge them for their gifts, because some people, their love language is gifts, right? So that's also a different way to look at this. But if someone's really, really love bombing you and they're really over the top, I think it's just, you need to take a step back and just say, hey, I just need a breather. I recognize we have this amazing connection and I want to follow it. And I also want to get all the lessons from it. So let's just take a deep breath. Let's just, really step back from the illusion that we are creating around this relationship, because that's where the attachments come in. That's where the abandonment wounds come up, right? Is when we really think, this person is my everything. Oh, that's such dangerous words, because love is within you. It's always within you, and it's something then that you share with someone else. And yes, we vibrationally match with others, and we have these beautiful experiences. And so I'm not discounting what others do for us in these love relationships, but we can't get all caught up and focused on love outside of ourselves, because then we're not going to be, in our true highest self place, walking planet Earth and in service to others, because we're so focused on thinking that, if somebody takes something away from me or somebody gives something, that has, value of who I am as a person. They're niceties. They're beautiful ways to express our love for other people, but stay focused on being in love with yourself and sharing that love with someone else. So, I don't think love bombing has to be bad. I think we just need to recognize when it's happening and what the lesson may be for, for the person receiving the love bombing, and also the lesson for the person doing the love bombing, and having open conversation about it. If it feels off, it feels off, right? We don't have to make excuses for how we feel about something. It's an opportunity to share our feelings. So if you get love bombed, look at it as a really fun way of being able to feel into what you think feels like the things that you want in life and in love, and if they match up, and your ability to communicate that with someone else. So great lessons there. All right. I think that's all we've got for today. We're down to the end here, and I've had so much fun answering the questions. I so appreciate every week everyone that submits questions. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. It helps. You'll get notifications when the next live comes, and you'll be able to just stay tuned with everything that's coming down the line here. So please subscribe, hit the bell. You'll get the reminders. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. And if you're watching it on replay, please write in the comments. I want to hear all about anything that you took away and anything that you want to learn more on. All right. So until next week, wishing you much bliss and love.